Ever had a moment so strange it made you question reality? Imagine feeling a chill down your spine as the world around you seems to glitch, like déjà vu. These spine-tingling, head-scratching experiences will make you stop and wonder, did that really just happen? Get ready to step into a world where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the unexplained becomes eerily real. Growing up, my grandmother used to always tell me a story about how the week before I was born, her and my grandfather had my parents over for dinner. They lived down the street from each other, so this was a common thing. The phone rang just as they were about to sit down. My grandmother picked up, and the man on the other end asked for Annabelle, which just so happened to be the name my parents had recently decided on for me. This is a relatively unique name, I think, at least for someone in my hometown. My grandmother laughed and said, "She isn't here yet, try again in a week," and said she would take his number, this was before caller ID, for me to call back later. The man did give her his number and she wrote it down, just as a joke for my parents to remember. Time went on as normal. I was born and happily named Annabelle. My grandmother, for whatever reason, decided to keep the note that she had scribbled the man's number down on. It was stashed away in a photo album that was soon to be filled with many pictures of me. She loved to tell this story, so I heard it many times. Flash forward 25 years to tonight, literally this evening. I was visiting my grandparents with my fiancé. He just proposed 2 weeks ago, and they wanted to flip through old albums to show him what I was like as a baby. The scrap paper's in there. My grandmother grabs it happily and begins blurting out the story. He'd never heard it before, as this was the first time he'd met my grandparents since we live far from them now. He asks to see the paper and his face goes white and says, "This was my phone number growing up." Now, my fiancé is from Virginia, which is far from where I grew up, so it's not like our families knew each other even vaguely 25 years prior. He is 2 years older than me, so he had already been born when the call was made to my grandmother, and he lived in the same house from the time he was born till the time he left for college. The number was definitely his family's when the call was made 25 years before. The only conclusion we could come to was that his dad must have misdialed when looking for someone named Annabelle, and it just happened to be my grandparents' number. The saddest and kind of eeriest part of the story is that my fiancé's father passed away last year. We can't even ask if he remembers. My 5-year-old son was pretty typical for his age, always goofing around, never serious, always working some angle to negotiate treats or buying whatever thing was at the top of his list this week. So when my son asked me to go for a walk, just the two of us, I immediately laughed and thought, okay, what's he going to ask for? We start walking and I ask, "What's on your mind, buddy?" He said, "Nothing really, I just want to have some time to be with you and be peaceful and be out in nature." Wow, okay, this is progress, I thought. Then he said, "I want you to know you're the best dad I've ever had. You really do help me and my sister a lot, and you're really very nice, even though we don't usually tell you. So I just wanted to say thank you for everything, and that I want to be near you always." By this point, the only reason I wasn't completely crying my eyes out is that I thought it was some kind of a joke or lead up to ask for something. This was totally out of character, especially at this age. I managed to croak out something like, "I'm really glad to hear that, and I love you very much." Then we just enjoyed the rest of the walk. It really felt like for a moment I was speaking to a soul who has had several lives. You're the best dad I've ever had. And wanted to speak directly to me instead of play the role of a child. I'm so glad it happened, and it's something I will never forget. Later, he went right back to being the same old goofy kid that I love. I developed tendonitis in my hand, so I went to see a hand specialist at my regular hospital. I remember the hand specialist really clearly. She was a really happy, talkative Vietnamese woman with straight, dark brown hair and glasses. She had a German-sounding last name, which I assumed was her married name. She was really, really nice, and we had a long conversation about a medical conference that she goes to. She explained that my hand issues, caused by phone usage, were the hot topic of the conference, and that she'd probably use my injury as an example when she goes there. Anyway, she gave me care instructions and sent me home. I was told to return if it didn't resolve in a few weeks, because then I'd need to be re-examined and sent to physical therapy. It didn't resolve and I went back. I had an appointment with the same doctor, but the woman who came into the room was completely different. She was a white woman with light brown hair, no glasses, completely different face shape, really dull and unwelcoming disposition. I was so confused I asked her name, and she gave the same name the Asian doctor had. I asked if there was another doctor by that name, and she told me no, it was only her. I described the doctor I had seen, and she got annoyed and said she didn't know who I was talking about. I later went online to the hospital staff directory and tried to find the Asian doctor. I couldn't. I have no idea what happened to her. I even checked my medical records to see if maybe I remembered her name incorrectly, but I didn't. Both of my visits have the same doctor's name on them. I've always been confused about this, and it really bothers me that I met someone who doesn't seem to exist anymore. This didn't happen to me, but to my dad. He works for a heating and air conditioning company, so he often has to go out to people's houses to fix things. About 5 years ago, he told me he had a bizarre dream where he went on a call to an elderly woman's house. He'd never seen the house or this woman before, but he said it was bizarre because of how realistic the whole thing felt. He fixed her boiler in the dream, chatted for a bit, and then left. About a week later, his company gets a call from an elderly woman needing her boiler fixed. They send my dad on the job. When he arrived, he said it was the exact same house from his dream and the same old lady. He knew her name before he even had to ask and knew his way around the house without having gone inside yet. When she opened the door, she said, "Hi, Jim." And when he asked how she already knew his name, she said she had a dream last week that her boiler broke and that my dad is the one who came to fix it. So she just knew that would be his name. Two complete strangers, never having met each other, had the exact same dream that they would meet each other, and they did. The whole thing is so crazy. So, this happened about a week ago, but my memory is still pretty fresh. My boyfriend and I were in the car on the way to get dinner and chatting casually. Everything was normal. As we pulled up to a red light, somebody caught my attention. There was a guy, I'd say between 15 and 18 years old, walking on the sidewalk across the street. I noticed him because he looked like he was straight out of 2004. Baggy jeans, gray beanie, and a black t-shirt over a long-sleeve white shirt. I thought it was funny, figured he was some kind of skater, and pointed it out to my boyfriend and made some joke about the guy being from the 2000s. We both agreed he looked out of place, and that's when we started joking that he must be a time traveler. I said something like, "He's probably thinking, 'Whoa, dude, where am I?' And as soon as I said it, the guy started to look around like he was confused. We were in a car and across a busy street from him, no way he heard us. We remarked that it was weird as we watched the guy look around confused for a few moments. Then we both looked away for no more than half a second, I don't remember why, and when we turned back, the guy was gone. At first we laughed and thought it was funny. But the more we looked, the more we realized that he had nowhere to go and he really just completely disappeared. I can't stress this enough. We barely looked away and had nowhere to go that we wouldn't be able to see him. We both freaked out and drove most of the rest of the way in silence while we thought about time travel. We haven't really talked about it since, but we agree that it was obviously really weird. My dream was simple. I was driving down from the mountains back home with friends in the car after, what I vaguely remember, was a snowboard skiing trip. The conversation was, I suppose, the usual for a long car ride. I spy this, and just stupid stuff. Then Smash Mouth's All Star came on. I remembered it because everyone started singing along, speeding down the mountain, and after signaling into the passing lane, all of a sudden a huge car wreck happens right in front of us. Happening so fast, cars smashed into each other, and one of the cars involved rolling off the mountain over the divider. I was too close to avoid it, and so I pulled to the right, which caused the car behind us to plow into the side of us, rolling our car to the opposite side of the road. I remember just a fuzzy feeling upside down and just glancing around the car and just seeing my friends mutilated. It sends shivers down my spine to even think about it. I wake up and in tears. I was just so frightened and scared. It was so surreal. This is where the glitch begins. After years passing from the night of the dream, My friends and I decided to get together to plan a small trip to have a ski and snowboard day for the first snowfall. We knew a storm was coming, so we headed up the mountain. Good runs, fresh snow. It was overall a great success. We had gotten exactly what we had come for. We packed our things and headed down the mountain, and it clicked. The same stupid car banter, I Spy, and then Smash Mouth's All-Star came on. It happened. I was in my nightmare. The wreck happened just as I remembered, but I didn't pull right as I did in my dream. I pulled to the left into the opposite lane and somehow just avoided it. Everything slowed down. It was like I was in my own world, and everything happened the same except for my actions. We pulled to the side of the road and called 911. I broke down. It was too much. I was again scared and shaking, but somehow that stupid dream saved my life.